David Goggins, one of the toughest people in the world right now and one of the most influential people around. He certainly influenced my life, teaching me about discipline and how to do things that you need to do even when you don't feel like it. I'm sure he influenced a lot of us. Most of us at some point were probably scrolling on our phones, just see a shirtless guy running around in the sun telling you to stay hard and do what you need to do. So yeah, I'm sure like a lot of us have been influenced by this guy. So Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins is the book we're discussing today on the first episode of Growth Reads, where we'll be discussing the highlights from some of my favorite books that helped me grow and will hopefully help you as well to grow and live your life to the full potential. And who better to talk about living to your full potential than this guy, David Goggins. So as we know, David Goggins was 300 pounds, spraying cockroaches for a living, and he went on to become this Navy SEAL icon, running over 70 marathons, going through 3 hell weeks, having the record for most pull-ups in a day. Just this really tough guy that goes through whatever comes at him. He looks for the challenges. This book talks about what led up to that, how he changed his life into becoming who he is today. And it goes way back to his childhood, where he had to face being abused by his dad. His mom also was being abused. He had to face racism and poverty. So with all the abuse that he got from his dad, eventually they run away, him and his mom, to start a new life. But they still have to face poverty now that his dad is not there. He had troubles in school. Racism was still around. So he talks about how that made him act in a way that isn't him. He used to act like a gangster in school, just to look tough, but deep down he knew that wasn't him. That wasn't how he's like. He was just acting that way for other people. Eventually, as his life goes on, he becomes overweight and he's stuck with a job that, like, who wants to spray cockroaches for a living, right? But at some point he decides that he will change that this is enough acting. He won't care about others anymore. He's gonna do this for himself. He decides to apply for the Navy SEAL. Of course, he's 300 pounds, so he had to lose all that weight in such a short amount of time, which he did. Then went on to be this guy that you see today. And along that journey, he explains, of course, in detail all the stuff he went through in his life, in his childhood, how he changed the way he thought, and how all of this made his mind tough the way it is today and the way you see it today. And along this book, after every chapter, he tells you a challenge based on what he did in his life. Some of these challenges was, for example, identifying his weaknesses. He had troubles at school, for example, so he had to identify that weakness and put effort into it, put more hard work than others in order to change that weakness and make it a strength even. So he tells you to identify your weaknesses and have a clear vision of them. He says, for example, some of our weaknesses could be that we're too comfortable or grow up too supported, and that could be a weakness in and of itself. Identifying your weaknesses is really important because it will give you something to work on. He also talks about what he calls the 40% rule, which is when we feel that we're done, we're only at 30% of our potential. And that just gives you an insane vision of how much we're capable of and how much this guy had to, like, he ran a marathon with broken feet and he still pulled through 100 miles. He probably felt already done by the 10th mile, but the thing that made him go to the 100 is just, it tells you a lot about what we're capable of if we put our mind to it. That's such a cliche thing that a lot of people say, if you put your mind to it, you can do it, but it's true. This and what he says in his book, it's proof that you can do whatever you put your mind to. And in order to get to that potential, you have to callous your mind, which happens by stepping outside of your comfort zone on a regular basis, pushing more every day and becoming a better person. For example, if you go to the gym, if you lift a certain weight, you will add a little bit of weight next time, or you'll add a few reps. Basically, you push 5 to 10% each time. If you go running, you run a little bit more each day. Over time, your base level, if it was here and you go 10% more, your base is now here, and you go 10% more and it goes, and now it's there. So over time, your base goes really high. Now this is your base when it was like right here. So that just makes your mind tougher and able to manage and conquer anything that comes in its way. He also talks about the importance of visualizing success. You need to visualize and imagine how you're gonna be and let that fuel you. But he not only says to imagine success, he also says to imagine the challenges on the way to that success. So for example, when he goes to run a marathon, he would go to the place where the marathon is held and go through the route, visualize the challenges and visualize himself running through that. Basically, that helps him get ready and it fuels him to rise to the levels that he talks about in his book. And he not only says to visualize the success in the future, but he also says to look back at the past successes. If you had a tough situation and you managed to pull through, you should keep that in your mind, in what he calls the cookie jar, where you keep all the tough situations that you went through and all the successes of your life for when you are in a tough situation again. You can pull that like pulling from a cookie jar, and you basically remind yourself of your past successes and just let it fuel you and give you confidence about yourself. I personally really like this because sometimes we lose confidence of ourselves, and reminding ourselves of the tough times that we got through before reinforces us. It sets our foot on the ground and just helps us have confidence in ourselves. We all need that confidence in our lives because some of us can't get it from other people, so we have to get it from within ourselves. There's also something else that he talks about which can come to your mind and mess with your confidence, which is you ask yourself, why are you doing this? Usually when you get to a hard part of your life, you're like, why am I doing this? Just go home, be in your bed with your girl. This also comes to him and he explains it like throughout his marathons. He goes into detail. This question comes to your mind, which is, why are you doing this? And he tells us that you need to have an answer for this because it will come to your mind when it all gets tough, and you need to be ready by having an answer for that, having a purpose. And lastly, after you've achieved greatness, hopefully all of us can achieve greatness in our own way, he says that you have to stay consistent because greatness doesn't stay. It evaporates unless you keep putting in the hours and the consistent work every week and every day. And again, this comes back to the purpose. You have to have purpose in order to keep doing this so consistently. So yeah, it's a really inspiring book. It's definitely a must read for everyone that wants to get better every day and stay consistent. In a way, it will make you grateful for your life because this guy's life was a nightmare, but he turned it around. We can all learn something from this man. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new here, my name is David. I make videos about some of the cool books that will help us grow, like this one. I also make videos about my fitness journey and generally the stuff we can do in order to be more productive each day and get the most out of our lives. So if you're new and this sounds interesting to you, feel free to subscribe and let me know some ideas in the comments of other books that you want me to read and talk about on this channel. That's about it. Thank you for watching and I'll see you around. Peace.